أهلا وسهلا أهلا وسهلا. How are you doing? How are you doing? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I am so amazingly gorgeous as a man that whenever I make a recording, I can't help myself looking at myself in the at the phone camera, the screen versus the actual lens that supposedly should capture my picture. I'm sorry, you cannot blame me. I am just too good. This video, primarily speaking, I want to talk about if it does any good, basically, about the crisis in Middle East, basically, from Mediterranean Sea all the way to Afghanistan. Pretty much interesting enough. A good coverage of the entire Middle East. That is very interesting. So pretty much the whole place is like a hell, burning real bad, with the exception of a few countries. That is Iran, which is burning sanctions, not well, still there's no physical fight or physical war going on, but sanctions have been destroying Iran ever since the 1979 revolution. Basically, U.S. was very genius and quick to come up with this whole concept by freakishly, as soon as the embassy issue was basically happened, America came up with this whole deal. So I got the solution. Sanction them. I guess still Iran hadn't really been accused of being a terrorist state or anything like that, but Americans are very genius. Well, you got the money, you're controlling all the you have this dollar, which is declared the currency of trade ever since World War II by the signatories to the United Nations. So guess who really gets to do what it wants? And then further out in 1977, if I'm not mistaken, actually they came up with the whole idea of fiat money, but wait, it gets even better. So in 1972, they established a fiat money where the Federal Reserve Bank is actually able to, at its own discretion, without having equal amount of, perhaps, as you call, whether it's gold or valuables, basically in reserve, it gets to print out dollar, or by buying back securities as bond or so forth, it gets to reduce the supply of money to control the whole market. And I'm not talking about just the domestic market, we're talking about the entire international global market. There's so many different things surrounding this thing. For good or bad, U.S. government as an entity and as a nation has a lot control and leverage on our world. The thing about it is that, so like I said, this is a really interesting thing, because it's funny. Thank Allah, for the love of God, even though I'm not Muslim. I was not born and raised in this shithole America, and I mean it so bad, because I feel so awful, and awful for Americans, and it's three pieces here. Number one, feeling awfulness for Americans, being number two, being extremely and chaotically, exasperatedly, mentally, that I cannot understand this whole equation. Number three, feeling so blessed that I was not in this thing, because it's psychology works. This is a very interesting thing. Just like this man said it. People will take a lie. All you have to do is just, regardless of what the reaction is, just keep on lying. And it does. When people get the same message 20 times from their surrounding, whether they really know even the facts and they're so good at it, they start kind of getting some kind of mental compromise, you know? They're like, well, you know what? Maybe, matter of fact, they're wrong at the end of the day, but guess what? Ain't much I can do about it, because it seems like the entire surrounding of mine, for the most part, by consensus, has this opposite belief about what I know as a truth about it. I was watching this video for, then again, another video. This is my second recording about this whole thing. This Prager University, Maccabeeth movement. Is this what? I don't know. Is this supposed to be some Israeli something? I will put the link for the video so you have a reference to it. Basically, it simply says that, you know, it's basically one-sidedly, but it simply says, oh, you know, Israelis have always tried to broker a deal and try to work things out. And guess what? The other parties to this whole conflict, the Arab nations, the Jordanians, Egyptians, Iraqis, Syrians, and Lebanese, they've been exactly the quiet polar opposite, which so goddamn, you know, ruthlessly and barbarically been always trying to kill the Israelis and always trying to sabotage them and try to add nothing but simple barbaric notion of pure waging massacre on the Israelis. This is the whole thing that the video talks about. It's just basically saying that you all been told here or there by the news that Israelis do all kind of crime, or here or there they do, but the reality is that, yes, hold on, the reality is that according to this man who is the executive of this Maccabeeth movement, or whatever it's called, neither time they were accepted. I mean, I have to say it's a good video in the sense that, you know, he states his thesis, and he stays focused on his thesis in the beginning, and his point that he basically makes at the beginning, and you understand what I'm saying? But the thing about it doesn't consider anything else but purely just establishing Israelis as the good guys and antagonizing the Arabs as the son of a bitch, or pure darkness, evil, whatever you want to call it. You know, I'm not a history expert, and it's just too much shit that I want to go through the whole thing, and I want to read piece by piece. You know, this the thing about it is that, let's make it simple. This is a global pattern. You don't need to necessarily know every details of every single conflict in this world to have a sense and try to point fingers and say, oh, who did what. The reality is that this is a fake fight. This is all it is. This is all it's been. I've said this before. I will say this again. You know, this is a simple thing that happened. You can read about this. I'm not just making something up. Let's go back. This man that made this video, he just said one piece of matter right off the bat from the very beginning, and it was just the right thing. He said that during the initial conflict between the Jews and the Arabs, you know, the British, they started conducting basically a research to find out what is the underlying cause of this Arab revolt and rebellion that is, you know, plaguing the area. And the conclusion was that it's fight over land. And where that comes from, I want to be very concise. Simple said, the war with the Ottomans, 1916, the British and the Allies, they promised the Arabs, they say, you know what, if you guys fight for us against the Ottomans, this entire land surrounding that proximity where today the Palestine, supposedly these lands are there, Gaza, you know, the Israel, basically, as you know. So for this will be all yours. And meanwhile, this thing is processed, another document comes out where they reach out to this man, Rothschild, who is the prominent leader of the Jewish community, rich Jews in basically in UK. And it says that, I want to assure you that we are working to find you a piece of land, and we found you one, and we're working to basically find you a permanent home. This is the this is a quick paraphrase of this whole document. So the same piece of land was promised to two parties literally simultaneously and coincidentally enough. Now listen, this is what I want to say. Like I said, this is a whole setup for both parties. Nobody here is a winner. Israelis and the Jews and the Arabs and all of us, we all victims here, man. You're just being... We think that, basically in our own interests, we're just good into trying to perhaps support a certain side or the other. I'm just trying to tell you that this idea pointing a finger at who, saying, okay, the Israelis did this. Yes, a lot of shit Israel did, a lot of things the Arabs have done, so forth, and I'm not gonna go into detail who did worse than the other, the one who committed the worst genocide versus the other. It's not even an interesting subject for me. I have no interest in violence. It hurts me, it pains me, it ails me. I'm not interested to know any account of these things. As much I've read about it, I've had enough of these shares of these things. Like I said, this is just all funny jokes. So getting to down to the bottom of it, like I said, and being quite realistic here. How do you say that? Nobody, this is all a setup and was meant to merely one thing, like this man, how do you say that? This Lawrence of Arabia. This man was a British officer, British army officer, and he was a very intelligent man, and he came up with this whole thought that they can put this block of Israel, the Jewish settlements, right in the between of this entire thick, solid Arab alliance, basically, Ottoman Arab alliance, which, as he said it, so no one ever would be able to put this whole lands together. And the British and Americans did a great job of trying to giving what they need to these people to make sure that they're able to create, to hold on to this wedge that they have created among this entire thick, solid Arab Muslim piece of land. And they've been doing this to this day. It's not a new thing. This is a fucking funny joke, man. You have a 6-day war, man. What does that tell you? Obviously somebody has a lot of leverage here versus the other ones that gets to win a war in 6 days. Who can win a war in 6 days? Even this fucking George Bush was thought that, with the American this whole power thing with the military, and they think it didn't work out like that when they want to capture Iraq. It was not. It was meant to be, I don't know, what did they say? A few days. It turned out to be quite a long thing. Right? What I'm saying, that was a very imbalanced thing. Anyways, let's get down to the bottom of this, man. I don't know what you guys make out of this, even though I know very well the whole idea of siding with one thing and just turning a blind eye in this whole thing. I have to say, whoever engineers these thoughts, they're very intelligent, and I studied economics, so partially I can relate to this whole thing. That is, I know how they do research and analysis and calculations to come up with the best possible strategies to assure best results and crippling effect on the entire Middle East, and how to balance this whole equation out. But, well, actually, better say there's no but. I hate to use the whole concept of consequence here, because that would be just not a very what's the word for it? It's not very detrimental in terms of the fact, because, as you know, I mean, if you don't do something, if you do something merely because you're concerned about the consequence of it, and merely that, per se, I really don't know what to say. I mean, if you're really not realizing what you're doing is wrong or right, and you're doing it, really is not much I can do to try to dissuade you or persuade you against it or for it. So, further getting down to this thing, how do you say that? This is not going anywhere. Trust me. Middle East is a very important region in the world, not only in terms of its oil supplies and the natural resources. It's a very strategic locations, and further, it's also home to many people who are actually substantially very intelligent people, mainly speaking Iranians and Persians, that is. I always say this one thing: let's hope nobody beats the system. I don't know how I can go about emphasizing this thing. All I can say is that one thing: the people who live in this country, America, and the Western countries that are allies of US, very similar in the whole Arab Spring. Not in a violent way. When I say Arab Spring, I mean in a mass protest riot that is actually conclusive and leads to a result. People need to get together, Americans, and say, you know what, stop this whole fucking cycle of agony. I don't know who is who. It's not your choice anymore. It's not your choice as an Israelis. It's not your choice as a Palestinian to merely say, nope, I'm not negotiating. Okay, you know what? You don't have that right anymore. I'm sorry. Obviously, you don't know what you're doing. You're just creating conflict in the name of governments. It's funny, they come up with this whole concept of terrorism being a private organization that for political or economical motives resorts to acts of violence, which very beautifully enough means that, so if you're a government and you do it, that's perfectly fine, no problem. Well, so if you're a government, you're doing the same thing, she's be off. Yes, our heroes, our veterans heroes, yes, bless them, yes, they're very blessed, yes, by the way. So, how do you say this? If you really think you have some power here, which is funny, so how the hell is that throughout this entire courses of the conflicts that Israel and these countries have had with each other throughout this whole region, is that the conflict and basically the antagonized forces, the rival, the enemies, they've never been completely eliminated, and merely it's been just some kind of a backlash here there, and before time son of a bitch, somehow they get themselves together and they're back in the game, still punching and still kicking. You know what I'm saying? Well, I mean, how is this? I don't understand this concept. You really think that these people who come up with this policy making and creating a Jewish state, even at the Israelis themselves, I'm not talking about, if you want to say, let's not talk about that part of the equation, that factor where you very well, a lot of people, even though there are clear facts about it, everybody knows that U.S. very admittedly and quite well known, it gives 3% or so forth of its GDP to the Israel, actually. Wait, what? We're just trying to help them. What is your problem, okay? I cannot give money to people? You twite. You Iranian twite. You cannot see that I'm helping somebody. Just because in America we made panhandling illegal doesn't mean that we cannot give money to people, okay? You're getting some ideas here, motherfucker. Okay, this is different, okay? This is your problem. Okay, this is not my problem, okay? Okay, gracias, amigo. Thank you. Yeah. So, moving on. How do you say that? What do you call it? No, speaking just the Israelis, just not talking about the American or the people who are backing these people. Do you think they really never thought of this thing? You know what? Do we really want this? Like, we just want to have this nation as Israel where every fucking second everybody's frightened that something's crazy gonna go off and happen? For what reason? I mean, do we really think somebody will come up with this stupid idea? If I'm an Israeli advisor, policymaker, politician, I'd be like, you know what? I don't care who the fuck is going on, what the fuck is that. I'm gonna put all these people out. You know what? I'm not sitting here fucking every second thinking that somebody's gonna terror me or some shit is gonna happen to my people, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Now let's just be very realistic here if that's really the venue you want to go. So what is a piece of puzzle that is missing here? Let me think. Well, we're really not trying to get rid of anybody here, bro. We're just trying to keep the fight going. Somebody's making money here, bro. Hold on, let me see. What's the motherfucker right here? Well, we don't want to do business with the Russians. This motherfucker Russian, they're trying to do communists and all that shit. Yeah. It was like that. Yeah, we do business with Americans. Hey, motherfucker, good people. Yeah. It's cheap. They sell a lot of guns and shit like that. It's cheap right there. Yay. So yeah, these your people make tons of money here while they're actually watching other people die. How beautiful is that? Oh, that's so cool. Oh, see, this is so beautiful. Yeah, there's nothing beautiful about this. By the way, I had to live this life in my childhood, actually, and it was not very interesting, I can assure you. I still suffer a massive amount of trauma. There's no stealing it. It continues and it overtakes my life in a very awful way. But I have to laugh about it. How cool is that? How fucked up is that? So listen, you know, this thing needs to be ended. There's nothing funny here. It's a stupid, vicious cycle and agony that's been happening. We're not gonna go into the business of, you know, trying to get whoever done shit so far, trying to bring him to justice. That's another phase. That's fine. You can do it aftermath and afterward the whole thing. Here's one thing, man. I don't care what needs to be done. This thing needs to be done. Okay, you know what? Somebody needs to stop doing this. You know, and you really think that, I mean, how the F is that? You know, this is I'm sorry, really, I don't get this. Before I want to tell you guys what you guys don't get, I don't get it. How is it America says, okay, so hold on. These Arabs, they're all the troubles to the Israelis. Hold on one second, son of a bitches. Fucker, you fuck with people so, man. You watch them die in front of you. What do you think, what kind of shit is gonna happen to you, man? Somebody has to pay for this crap. Okay. Yeah, seriously, this is a big problem, you know. You're causing lots of damage to the world and people, and pain is not beautiful, man. You know, and seriously, somebody pays for this. What I'm saying, this is just the forces of the nature. This is just the matter. This is a very pure, if you will, you know, laws of biology and physics. And it's not beautiful when somebody pays for it. Why do you have to create some pain on somebody, which at some point reverts back to you. For what reason? You know? And when you have clear ability to stop this, you know, I mean, you have 300 million people living in this country. Instead of fucking drinking, drugging, having sex, and not giving a shit about it, come on, man. Well, okay. So they say, you know, the Arabs are always causing a problem, and they're always the enemy and the sworn enemy of the Israel. And I don't know, somehow from the middle of nowhere, from the 1979, these Iranians who really, everybody, you know, they have no business with the Arab whole cause or anything like that. All of a sudden they kick in and they're like, wallah, 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 yallah. And they express pure hatred and they embrace the Arab cause and the whole thing. But here's the deal. Americans basically antagonize the Iranians and them, but totally embrace the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the Arab nations, basically, even though they said these are the people who are behind all these wars, and they finance it, and they still give money away to all these people. Please, for the love of God, man, people are dying. This is not sweet, man. I don't care, they're Israelis, they're Palestinians, they're children, they're adults. This body does not have to suffer. I don't care who it belongs to, who it's resonated on. Is a Jewish man, is this new label, an Israeli man, is a Arab man, is an Iranian, is a fucking American, who that is, man. Pain is bad. Nobody has to suffer. You know, I don't know how I can say this else how. I mean, the whole concept is that dialogue, and I think dialogue, it does surpass everything by far. You know, let's not talk about who did what, who's responsible here. There's one thing, this needs to be stopped, and the people who are obviously running the system, being it the Americans and the allies, being the Palestinian Authority, being the Israeli governor, you know, the politicians, whoever they're going at, obviously they're not doing it right. And it's time for people to take charge of this whole thing. And instead of installing some new round of politicians to take care of this, no. They need to have like a board of directors and coalition of the very people to actually end this thing. This is a one and foremost agenda, not to create a whole thing. And yes, after that is done, and that creates, you know, now we're talking, and you might be like, well, how do we go about this thing? Look at what's happening in the Middle East. We have the Iranian basically side to it. There's Hezbollah and Hamas. We have the Americans, we have the Iranians, we have the Israelis, we have the Arabs. All these things. Cut out whoever is financing these people. And before you want to say that, oh, okay, so you mean what we were doing in the last 40 years, trying to sanction the Iranian government, trying to cut them? Obviously, it's not been fucking working, okay? You know, that is not, maybe theoretically and ideally, that's something that you guys have. It's just simply like a very simple formula, like just this son of a retard. Well, he's not a retard, he's a very smart guy, but he just has orders and they give him a script to read every morning he wakes up. This Mr. Adani, well, yeah, Iranians are giving money to the terrorists. Okay, so let's sanction them. We suck the money out of them. Problem solved. No more money, no more terror. Yeah, they've been doing this, in case you don't know. In the last, I grew up in Iran. All the time I remember we had some kind of man, you people are very fucking nasty. Because, you know, these sanctions work. They do work. But who they work on, whom they work on the fucking people, man. The people who are just out of one step or one pace from literally exploding. Let's just put it that way. People just don't die. If people would just die, maybe it wouldn't be too awfully bad. Just suffer. They suffering, man. Do you know what that means? No, you don't know what that means. Because you're too busy drinking, sucking dick, or screwing somebody, and thinking that what a liberty and beautiful freedom you have. We don't even get to have that. It would have been maybe not too bad if, as an Iranian, I grew up in Iran, if, number one, by my own moral standard, and number two, society was tolerant of that kind of behavior and be like, you know what, maybe I don't have fucking too much money in my pocket, but every day I can go drink, get some kind of, shit, get some kind of marijuana, fuck a pussy, and be happy about it. Hallelujah. You know what? Something. No, we don't even have that. So how do you say this thing? No, the sanctions are not the way you go about this business. The way you go about this business is funding and financing the Iranians and giving them the weapon that undercover is actually contributing to this whole cause. And at the same time, giving money. American government every month gives money away to both Palestinian Authority and the Israelis, just to one thing, to keep the fight going. Seems like we just have to take this America out of the equation, everything would be beautiful, right? Well, in some ways, yes. That is not to cause any violence, but yeah, I mean, people getting together saying, you know what, stop doing this. No more money for Israel, no more fucking money for the Arabs. And make a very simple thing. How is it that, America has military bases all around the world, and minimally, if you will, in the places that the U.S. has the bases, if you pay attention throughout the world, there are minimally any conflicts of that nature. But how's it in all of a sudden in the Middle East? There's so much stuff going on. Because boy, dude, we don't give a shit about it, okay? We're just here as a backup. We're just here if something goes out of our own the plot that we made. So we're just here to try to leverage it back together. Yeah, and I get that. And it's wrong. This is how you do it. Stop the government, the American government, as the people, to stop doing this thing. This is how you do it. Matter of fact, stop the sanctions on Iran. Let the people breathe. Give them what they want. If America has to come up with this whole concept of speaking of giving the land away to people, buy a piece of land somewhere, not necessarily in America, somewhere in Africa. Say all the Iranians will give you money as a free citizens. Go migrate over there. I mean it. I know a lot of people might say, oh, you son of a bitch, you're fucking trying to tear out our country. No, I'm not trying to tear out your country. What I'm trying to say, coming up, I'm trying to introduce a theme. I'm not saying this is a solution necessarily. I'm saying any possible way aside from violence that Iranians, we're very intelligent people, in case you don't know. That's what I'm trying to say. Well, we don't have much of ways to do shit. That is aside from the whole fact that this is a reality. The Ayatollahs were brought to power by the America. Everything falls back to this son of a bitch America, man. Dude, what? Hold on. So, matter of fact, this is how you have to do it. Get the American government to stop this whole plot that's been going on in this contractual agreement and a deal they've been having with these people to rule over the Iranians. Baba, give people freedom. So be it. If they're good at doing something, they're good at even running the world, so be it. If you're so good at it, Let's create a free ground so two people or many competitors can compete. A free, basically minimally invasive, minimal externalities where different people can come in and play, just like a soccer league or soccer, world championship, whatever you call it. Different people come in and play. So be it. Whoever is good at it, they win. If Persians are so good at ruling the world, and you sucker, you can't stand up to it, maybe you better suck it. Okay? If this is what you're concerned about, you think we're gonna rule the world, maybe you're right. So be it. If you're good at it, so be it. That is not how you go about the business. You don't do crime to prevent a crime. This is not a policy that is gonna. So I mean, you're just equally as doing bad to other people. I was just saying this the other day to myself. I was saying, you know what, Arash, Jews being fucked with in the last millennium, at least, if last 2 millenniums, ever since Christianity, or even perhaps going back before that, prior to that, Jews being fucked with, and they were like, you know what? This is our opportunity to try to establish in themselves and try to get back to our own thing. One step forward thinking, I was like, okay, so Jews thought that in the name of their own interest and happiness, they thought the best way to do is to try to put pain and suffering on the rest of the people, so some other masses of people are suppressed here and they rise somehow and they become the new Jews, and somehow at that point they feel like, you know what, maybe they should do shit to the rest of the world so they can have a good life. So you have this. Come on, man, this is not how you do business, man. Come on, what are you thinking, man? You really think, if this is what you're having in your mind, saying, you know what, well, if I don't do it, somebody else is gonna control me. This is not how you do business. I'm not saying, you know what, you should not be political, you should not be smart about things, you should not watch around, you don't have to have intelligence. But keep it to a fair ground. Don't fuck with nobody. Keep everybody, as you all say, at the bay. You know what I mean? Anyways, that's it for me. Be good to yourself. Let's just say it that way.